All right, boys, we got to talk about Nintendo. Now, there's a couple of things we need to talk about regarding Nintendo. It's not a company we talk about very often because, well, Nintendo's kind of boring to me. I'm not going to lie to you. However, I know a lot of you guys play Nintendo, and I respect that, so let's talk about it. So, Nintendo reported a couple of things today. Thank you so much for watching this video, and if you guys want to see more content like this, make sure to hit that subscribe button and join me every single day, 9 p.m. over on the main channel, where you can catch me live every single day, 9 p.m. Eastern. I hope to see every single one of you there. Now back to the main video that I want to go over. First and foremost, they're reporting that 61.5% of its total sales are digital. Now, this number is being misrepresented a little bit all across the board, and we're going to explain why that is in a second. We got some information regarding that. It is up 2.2% from the same quarter last year. Now, just to give you some context, for those of you that are out there that may be shocked at the number being almost 40% physical, I need to remind you not to be shocked, okay? Because number one, Japan as a whole, and I've explained this many times in my videos and my streams, Japan as a whole is an extremely physical content-focused place, meaning that physical media is extremely important to Japan. They actually care about it so much that they have systems in place to properly track physical media in all its forms, whether it's manga or whatever, or video games and whatnot. For example, right, obviously you have Famitsu, which has the sales tracker for physical media. All of these numbers are for this week, and this is all for physical media. Right? Or, well, not for this week, but you know what I'm saying. Like, I'm just giving you an idea. They're all for physical media. So what it does is it gives you what it did for the week and what the total lifetime sales are for only physical media. Right? So they have really good ways to track physical media. So it's not surprising that it's still 40% in that country as well. Now, 61.5% is not small. If I had to guess, I would say a lot of it comes from Western purchases, because this is worldwide. This is not just in Japan. This is worldwide. So the worldwide figures are 61.5%. All right. Now, here's the crazy thing about all this. Nintendo, just like PlayStation, which we covered the other day, Nintendo has recorded a 150% increase in profits in its latest financial results. And it's mainly due to a $300 million US tariff refund. Now, I know a lot of you guys are going to say it's going to piss off a lot of people. Nintendo's currently getting sued, just like PlayStation's currently getting sued for the same exact thing, because they're essentially double dipping. They are, claiming the tariffs were the reason why they raised the price of their system. Then they obviously paid the tariffs, and then the tariffs went away. So now they're charging you more money per system. They're not returning any money to you, and they're keeping all of that money for themselves. As expected, usually this is how it goes, but I just wanted to bring it up anyway because it's absolutely insane. Now, with PlayStation, they got an almost 40% profit increase from the tariffs, and Nintendo benefited much more than that, at about 150% increase because of the tariffs, right? So let's continue. Now, here's some of the numbers that they released today. They released for the Nintendo Switch. They are currently at 23.68 million units. In terms of software for the Nintendo Switch, they have sold a total of 58.17 million units. If you want a comparison, the Nintendo Switch, the first one, is at 156.59 million units, and software is at 1,561.95 million units. So obviously they have sold an ungodly amount of software for the Nintendo Switch, and it seems like the Nintendo Switch 2 is climbing up there little by little. Now, let's keep going. Nintendo's net profit was up 53.5% year over year. This was largely because of the tariff refunds. If you look at the actual breakdown, it's crazy to see how much they actually gained from this. It says in fiscal year 27, quarter one, we recorded approximately $300 million US as a reduction of cost of sales in connection with refunds of the tariffs. The tariffs related to the refunds were primarily borne by the company rather than passed on to consumers through product prices. Now, that's not true. That is not true. Okay, it's true if you want to include maybe the video games, because maybe they wanted to charge more for the video games, but then they didn't. But they specifically increased the price of their system. They increased it, I think, like what, $50 for the Nintendo Switch 2, and they ended up blaming market conditions, blah blah blah, whatever, for the increase in the price of the console. But even though you bore the front of it at the beginning, because they did in fact bear the brunt of it at the start, they still ended up increasing the price of their console anyway because of reasons, right? So they're trying to make it seem as if they were being very nice to people, and that's the reason why, you know, they're gonna probably end up keeping the refunds and whatnot. It's just so stupid. So these are the lifetime unit sales for a lot of Nintendo video games, because they released all this too. It says Nintendo sees unstoppable at the moment, as the Nintendo Switch has sold over 156.59 units, and the Nintendo Switch 2 has now sold over 23.68 units. Guys, the reason why I'm bringing up this list is because we talk about all the time in terms of sales for certain video games, and how PlayStation and Ubisoft, these companies will claim success if their video game sells 1 million copies, 2 million copies, whatever. This honestly kind of shows that they're nowhere near the league of Nintendo, which, again, I don't want to give Nintendo that level of credit. But guys, I mean, it's insane. Look at what some of their games are doing. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Edition has sold 71 million units, right? Animal Crossing New Horizons has sold 50 million units. Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, 38.14 million, right? Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, 34 million, right? These numbers are astronomical. PlayStation, Xbox, all these companies, bro, they're struggling to get to 1 million. They're struggling to get to 1 million units sold on a lot of their video games. And even some of their biggest video games get to like 5 to 10 million at the most. You know, at least now, well, now I don't even know anymore, because their first initial versions of single player games, like Spider-Man, for example. Spider-Man did gangbusters numbers. Spider-Man did about 30 million plus. That's a lot of units, right? To be fair, Spider-Man, the first video game, which I like the first Spider-Man. Then Miles Morales came along, completely failed, okay? Not even close. Then Spider-Man 2 came around, not even close. Spider-Man 2 and Miles Morales combined are still less than the first Spider-Man, right? So all of this being said, these numbers are just extremely high for a lot of these video games. So I look at these games and I'm like, wow, man, looking at these other companies struggle to hit numbers even close to this, kind of sad, right? Think about, like, how happy would they have been if Marathon sold 10 million copies? Marathon barely scratched over 1 million copies, barely. And that's with all the fanboyism. That's with all this nonsense. They still only reached a little over 1 million copies. Kind of sad. And that's supposed to be their golden goose. So anyway, let's keep going. Now, it says, despite the industry's shift towards digital, 38.5% of Nintendo's game sales are still physical. According to the company's latest financial results, nearly 4 out of every 10 Nintendo games are sold and are still bought on cartridges. There's still strong demand for physical copies. Nintendo is the last good console to own. You know what the sad thing is? The sad thing is that you probably will have some sort of PlayStation shill out there, or even Xbox people. You'll have them out there, and they'll be like, shit, 38%? That's a minority. Just get rid of them. Who cares? Right, who cares? Same thing they're doing with PlayStation. PlayStation can account for 10, 15%, give or take, whatever, physical, and they'd be like, yeah, who cares? It's a minority. Who cares? Get rid of them. It's wild, right? Now, that's not to say that Nintendo's not going to eventually go all digital. I just don't see a world where they do it anytime soon. I'm sure they're going to follow suit at some point in time. It's only a matter of time. I feel like it's a little bit inevitable, especially considering that greed is usually something that Nintendo practices heavily. So to see Sony beat out, Nintendo in terms of a very greedy move is kind of shocking. But I will think, honestly, I think that considering that Nintendo plays on their home turf more than Sony does, if Nintendo were to do the same move, I think the reaction would be astronomically different. I think that the reaction would be so bad in Japan that they probably would not follow suit with. Like, I don't know. It's a tough call. I just think that it would be a lot worse than what it is now, considering that it's mostly Western users that seemingly are pissed at this, although there's Japanese users that are pissed at PlayStation getting rid of physical media also. just not to the same level. I think Nintendo would be way different. Way different. Can you imagine a world where you cannot go to the store and pick up the latest Pokemon game? Do you know how like melted down these Pokemon super fans would be if they couldn't go somewhere and physically collect something for their hobby? I just think that it would be a lot worse. I really do. I think they're so used to having something given to them. I just don't think they're gonna let it go. I think Nintendo fans are just totally different in that regard. But in any case, plus also keep in mind, guys, Nintendo is not in the same league, I guess you could say, when it comes to like online usage or online play. I don't think they're in the same league. Like, they're always well behind the other companies. Look how long it took for them to get really into third party, right? The Nintendo Switch 2 is probably their first system that is really trying to dabble in third party. But up until this point, they really didn't touch on it too much. The Nintendo Switch opened it up a little bit, but the Nintendo Switch 2 is where they're really going into it, to the point where they got exclusive contracts with some companies to make video games for them. So that was like almost unheard of up until the Switch 2. And realistically, they're utilizing the third party to pad the library that's available on the Switch 2 because they just don't have enough games. You know, that's what I really think is happening here. So I don't think that, even if they may want to right now, I don't think that their system and their infrastructure has the capability to be able to handle what would happen if they went all digital. I just don't think it's going to happen. So for right now, they're okay with kind of towing the line and keeping their almost 40% physical. I think they're okay in that regard. Whether or not they continue to incentivize digital sales, I don't know, realistically, because when you think about it, Nintendo's fucking cheap. They don't put anything on sale, very rarely, unless they're forced to. But as of right now, I don't think anything's going to necessarily happen from the Nintendo aspect. Now, ironically, the Nintendo Switch 2 has now officially outsold the Nintendo GameCube at 23.68 million versus the GameCube at 21.74. I think it's pretty ironic, but I love the GameCube. Now, this guy, Daniel Ahmad, posted on X, and he says the following: I'm seeing a lot of people misunderstand what this number means and compares it to the 82% figure for PlayStation. Now, people are taking the 40% figure, right, when it comes to, or I should say 61% for digital. They're taking the 61% digital figure, and they're comparing it to the 82% figure for PlayStation, right? You can't compare the two, and here's the reason why. So the breakdown to explain the difference is as follows. The 61.5% figure cannot be directly compared to Sony's 82% figure. The PlayStation figure represents the unit sales share of digital full game downloads versus all package and digital games. The Nintendo figure is revenue, and it includes revenue from digital game sales, add-on content, microtransactions and DLC, and Nintendo Switch Online. Nintendo breaks out its revenue differently than Sony. There are three main categories. You have packaged software revenue, which is physical. You have digital revenue for games that have a packaged physical release. And then you have digital-only games, add-on content, and Nintendo Online revenue. Nintendo generated 215 billion yen, which is $1.35 billion, from total software and subscription sales during April to June 2026 quarter. So they actually break it out better than PlayStation does. PlayStation wants to include everything in the digital number, because by including everything in the digital number, it makes their argument seem more understandable, or more like, okay, so if most people are seemingly buying digital, then that means we should go all digital, right, guys? Like, they try to push that nonsense by dumping everything into the digital number without actually spreading it out and trying to make everything make sense to people, right? So while they do it better, realistically, it's still, at the end of the day, these numbers are being represented this way for a reason. Packaged software revenue accounts for 83 billion yen, or around 39% of total software and services revenue. Digital versions of the games that have a package release generated 84 billion yen, representing around 39% of total software and services revenue, or approximately 50% of total package and digital revenue for games that have both a physical and digital release. Digital-only games, add-on content, and Nintendo Online generated 48.6 billion yen, or 22% of total software and services revenue. In other words, Nintendo is earning more from digital versions of games that have released at retail than they do from digital-only games, add-on content, and Nintendo Online. These numbers aren't comparable, unfortunately. Because of the way Nintendo recognizes revenue versus Sony, it's very hard to do a like-for-like comparison. It's also difficult to break down the actual sales split for digital versus physical for Nintendo for both revenue and units due to differences in how packaged revenue is recognized versus digital. Well, at least at the bare minimum, I will say that at least they do separate it, which is a good thing. Because by separating it, at least you get a better story and a more fundamental understanding of what exactly is going on in terms of who's buying what, why are they buying XYZ, you know what I mean? I like the fact that they do separate it. So here's the main takeaway, right? Just like with every console, digital sales continue to increase with each generation, and the Switch 2 is no different. We are getting to the point where digital unit sales can often represent around 50% of unit sales versus the physical release. Ultimately, there's no threat of Nintendo stopping physical game releases anytime soon because they continue to make up a very notable percentage of revenue. However, Nintendo's current issue with physical is purely down to the format and costs associated with it, which is why you're seeing cheaper game key cards and higher priced cartridges to maintain margin for packaged game releases. And again, I think if you told people, hey, we got to charge $10 more in order to get a real physical version, a real key card, a real anything, I think people would pay it. Especially Nintendo players, I think people would pay it. I really do. Like I'm not saying that to be like, you know, Nintendo players pay anything. I just think that if they were given the option to have a true physical ownership item, I don't think that they would say no. I think people would actually say yes. You know, just like if I was given the option to have a physical PC version for a video game and be able to like use the key to have a digital version ownership, but still be able to boot up a physical disc and be able to use it like it's no problem, I would rather have that. But unfortunately, I don't live in that world anymore. I used to. And I was buying physical media for as long as I possibly could. But eventually it just went away, sadly. And this was before the time of social media and all that stuff. Like basically like social media like we have today. You know, and I know like obviously you can take a video game these days and you can make your own physical media, but I'm talking about like official released physical media, you know what I mean? Something that has like a company's logo tied to it and stuff, you know? But people will pay more if they can physically own something. This is proven. This is always proven. Yeah, exactly, Dante. Look at digital manga. It's cheaper, right? Digital manga is cheaper. Digital books are cheaper. If you go on Amazon, buy digital books right now. What is it, like 99 cents? You buy the physical book right now. It's like 11 bucks, 9 bucks, 10 bucks, depending on what it is. Like people will pay more to physically own something. It's very important for them. So to be out here and pretend like we're losing money because we're making physical media, no, bitch. You're just choosing not to go to your customers and be honest with them and say, hey, we need to charge you more in order for us to keep providing this service. The reason why you're not doing that is because you know, and I know, and your grandparents know that it has absolutely fuck all to do with saving money. It has nothing to do with saving money for your company. And it has everything to do with having control over the ecosystem of which you're trying to charge people money for. And that way you could charge more and more money as time goes on and resell products that you take away from people 10 years down the line. The control is more important to you. The control is like literally priceless for these companies. So Nintendo's not as egregious. PlayStation, we already know where they're at. And Xbox, they're kind of in the middle right now. They're not really saying too much about this. But I do think it's pretty eye-opening to see this many people buying physical on Nintendo. I already knew this was the case. You would have PlayStation shills be like, oh yeah, nobody's buying physical. But they never want to mention Nintendo. They never want to mention Japan because they know that entire narrative is bullshit. The moment you actually talk about other places, you realize that the entire world is not the USA. The entire world is not the Western gaming industry. There's an entire other world out there that is absolutely buying physical media, and you want to pretend like it doesn't exist. For whatever that reason may be, I don't really know. You would almost think that these PlayStation shills are like personally invested in Sony, and that if they don't stop wasting money, that they're somehow going to lose money. It's the weirdest thing. It really is. But in any case, this is basically the story with Nintendo. And if you look here, it says annual player users have remained steady for Nintendo the last 3 years. The Switch 2 is still selling favorably compared to the original Switch, so they actually haven't grown. Ironically, this is the first year where Nintendo has not grown user base. It's pretty much at 130 million. So you got 130 million annual playing users. Same thing similar with PlayStation. Same thing similar with Xbox. If you notice, a lot of the consoles are all around the 130 million user mark. Meanwhile, you have the shills for each one of these consoles. They'll be like, yeah, Steam numbers don't matter. When Steam has over 200 million users. Look, what the fuck? It's insane. Anyway, that's basically it, boys, for the Nintendo story. Absolutely crazy. And I think that the fact that Nintendo and PlayStation are getting away with, well, as of right now anyway, we don't know what the future holds. But the fact that they are getting away with double dipping on the tariffs is honestly disgusting. I don't really have any other words for that other than it's fucking disgusting. And unfortunately, I think the lawsuits are not going to go very far. And I think they are going to get away with it. So that's what it is. Feature Ambry, and thank you for the uncle. I appreciate that, man. I definitely am an uncle. There you go.